Bonjour et bienvenue to the Total Soccer Show. Je m'appelle Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who, much like me, has just exhausted all his French language skills. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, I have, which makes me want to go the Joey from Friends route and just be
Do
like,
not.
Yadi blibbleboo.
Do not do that. Do not do that.
I'm sure all French speakers will love that.
More on Friends later.
Okay.
Today is our World Cup Group C preview. It's coming. It's our World Cup Group C preview. That means France, hence the slightly annoying intro if you actually do speak French.
Yeah.
It's Australia, it's Peru, and it's Denmark. We are going to get into all four of those teams. If you haven't heard a Total Soccer Show World Cup preview before, I think we've established a precedent that these go long, but theoretically, they are worth it. There's a lot of detail in here.
Absolutely.
I promised a luxurious and long preview. So best venue to listen is Bubble Bath.
I mean, I like that. It's you want to be luxurious but well rested.
Mm-hmm.
It also, it helps with the skin. So why not?
Does it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we start with France?
Mm-hmm.
France. We do this as team nickname and what the team nickname should be. So let's get us started, Taylor. Tell us all about France.
Mm-hmm. Their actual nickname is Les Bleus or Les Tricolores. Sure, I doubt
It's
that's
Les
it.
Bleus. Let's not kill ourselves.
And I'm going to go with the question marks, I think is what I'm going to say for mine. Or maybe the unstoppable force with a question mark on the end, because it seems like ever since FIFA did the simulation, they've become, the FIFA video game, they've become everybody's odds-on favorite. Mm-hmm. All of the previews are about how they have the most talent, how they have so much talent, so much depth. But there are still... Because it's France, there are still underlying issues that could be very problematic for them.
And we'll get into all of that right now. I have the team nickname as Les Bleus, the Blues, but it really should be the Rubik's Cube.
Yep.
It's the Rubik's Cube because...
Yours is better.
It's almost impossible to solve. You move one piece and you think it all lines up, but then there's another piece out of place.
Yeah.
That's what's going on with this France team. The very best example, which I believe other people have pointed to, is the Paul Pogba, Antoine Griezmann example, being Paul Pogba is best suited to a 4-3-3 formation where he can be part of a midfield three, gives him enough freedom to do what he does best, which is crazy moves and like insanely good vision passes. He goes on vision quest passing missions that other people can't see. But then Antoine Griezmann is best suited to a sort of 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 where he can play just underneath a striker like, say, Olivier Giroud. He can be a sort of second striker or number 10. In a 4-3-3, he gets pushed out to the wing. And there is no way to get that Rubik's Cube to line up where everything is perfect. There is no red, white, and blue Rubik's Cube.
And that's why my initial one, it didn't quite fit, but I'm still going to go back to it, was the whack-a-moles, because it does feel like that's sort of like, haha, I've solved that one. Oh, that one popped up. Now I've solved that one. Oh, the other one popped right back up.
It is exactly like that. So the coach is Didier Deschamps, but I believe it should be coached by Chris Gardner, as played by Will Smith in Pursuit of Happiness.
Okay.
Have you seen the movie?
No.
Oh, he solves a Rubik's Cube very quickly.
Understood.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just a formula, right? You just have to memorize the formula and then you can solve it.
Yeah, tell Didier Deschamps that.
I will.
I'm speaking to someone who has struggled mightily with Rubik's Cubes for about 30 years.
Well, I guess the equivalent of what he's going to do is peel the stickers off and then put them on so it looks like you've solved them. That's basically what he's going to do because he's just going to kind of make it work.
So, I mean, let's talk formation.
Sure.
I've looked at lineups. I've watched quite a few of the recent France friendlies. I've seen 4-3-3. I've seen 4-2-3-1. I've seen 4-4-2 diamond, and I can explain some patterns of play.
I've even
to you.
seen 4-2-2-2.
Yes.
Yep.
I can explain some patterns of play to you. I cannot guess for you what France are going to do for the first game of this tournament.
Me neither. I really can't. It's also worth noting that they're playing Australia as their first game, which is, I think, arguably, maybe not arguably, the weakest team in this group. So maybe you see a more attacking one where they're emphasizing trying to get as many attackers in and involved as possible to kind of get that chemistry off and running from the start. Maybe they go a little bit conservative and they try to make sure that their midfield and defense are established. I could see it go either way. And again, that's why they're the question marks for me, is because you could kind of say they're going to do this and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Or you could say they're going to do this and that might make sense. There's a lot of variety in there. And it's kind of almost worsened by how much talent they do actually have. That, like, we're talking about Antoine Griezmann and Paul Pogba, but we're not even mentioning the wealth of attacking options that could also start and play for them.
So my guess is that Olivier Giroud will definitely start.
Agreed.
Just because he always seems to definitely start, and he's sort of a target man, not that fast running in behind, but offers some good hold-up play and is really borderline unbeatable in the air because he almost cheats. How many times have you seen Olivier Giroud jumping for a header from a cross or a corner, and he's got his arm on your shoulder just to get a bit of extra leverage, or he'll fight for it and knock you out the way? So my first prediction is that Olivier Giroud will score a goal in Group C where it looks like he's fouling someone, but he gets away with it.
Okay. We have gone down similar paths here.
Have we now?
Yes, because I kind of have two. I'm not sure which one I like more, but they're both basically the same. One is that very specifically, Olivier Giroud will score off of a Djibril Sidibe cross. Or if you want to go more general, Olivier Giroud will outscore Antoine Griezmann in the group stage.
Let's talk about that Sidibe cross then. So for those who don't know, Djibril Sidibe is the right back. We think he's the starting right back.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, he plays for Monaco.
You are correct.
The left back will very likely be, assuming he's fit, Benjamin Mendy of Manchester City.
Yep.
The footage I saw of France, the fullbacks pushed very, very high.
Yep.
Any formation they played in, they had, say, Umtiti and Varane as the two centre-backs. I'll talk more about them later because I'm very excited about them. Fullbacks always went super, super high and got involved in the attack.
Yep. And worth noting there that Sidibe, overlapping fullback, 7th most assists in Ligue 1 last season.
There we go.
The most of any defender. So that tells you how much he's...
The most of any non-PSG defender as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think there weren't any PSG. I think it was just Neymar, not surprisingly. But it was the thing that I kept reading about, the thing I kept seeing in the highlight videos, was how good he is at putting that cross into the danger zone.
Yep.
That he very... I mean, I'm sure he does, but at least in terms of the highlights that led to like momentous clips, it was always put right in that spot where the keeper, like you frequently see the keeper start to come and then back up because it was like, oh, no, I can't get there.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You want that keeper to be indecisive and not making the dramatic big punch save, but also not just sitting on the line and reacting. That sort of caught in a land of indecision. That's what I think favors France.
Land of indecision.
Yeah, especially with Olivier Giroud there.
Okay, so things to look out for then will be Djibril Sidibe's crosses from right back. Here's the thing this feeds into for me is I am worried about France in that I think many, many times they have possession, and they will in this group, right? Against Australia, Denmark, Peru, they're going to be the big dog in every game. I see them have possession of the ball for long stretches, but don't do anything super decisive with it. They remind me a little bit of bad England in that they're kind of ponderous and there isn't a real plan where everything connects, and it's a lot of just move the ball around from side to side and hope one of our stars opens things up, and they worry me in that sense. It's a little too slow and ponderous, and the only time that it all changes is when Kylian Mbappe gets on the ball. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing.
Heard of him?
No, I don't know if you agree with me on this. I've seen them go very slow, and when Mbappe gets the ball, you hear the crowd get up, and you see the other players almost start moving more like they're molecules and he's fire, and they suddenly start bubbling and moving, and he will sort of drop a shoulder, roll the ball, play a 1-2, run at someone, open it up, have a shot. Everything just suddenly, it's like he's the key. You know, sometimes you say someone's the key to unlocking a defence. It's because they can slip in passes. I think Mbappe's the key to France in that he's the ignition.
Yeah.
Like it really just goes into the next gear as soon as Kylian Mbappe gets the ball.
Here's my only concern with that. I agree with you completely. I'm not saying they're the same, but for the purposes of this analogy, when you're talking about like bad England, you're talking about that Iceland game, right?
Yes.
It's still...
I mean, not only, but that's the best example.
But in that example, it reminds me a little bit, though, of Marcus Rashford coming on, because he was coming on, he was this very exciting teenager making his debut at a major tournament, and it was sort of like it seemed like sent on there just to try stuff and see what you can make happen.
Yeah.
But that can also mean there's no other real plan. It's just let's hope Kylian Mbappe figures it out. And if the team marks him or fouls him or kind of takes a very physical approach, then you're looking elsewhere for somebody else to unlock that defense.
I agree, but I would argue
that Kylian Mbappe is way better than Marcus Rashford at doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also a lot smarter about when to do it.
Absolutely.
My frustration with Rashford is every time he gets the ball, he's going to try and turn and go. And if you're a smart defender, it very quickly gets very predictable.
Or he'll shoot from a terrible angle. Just don't
Yes, all that. I think Kylian Mbappe is much smarter, much more varied, much better at reading a situation and knowing which is his best approach.
Yep.
And for that reason, my second very specific prediction of the day is Kylian Mbappe will win one of the 3 precious metal balls.
Ooh, okay. So that would be golden boot?
No.
Golden ball?
For the 3 best players, there's the bronze ball, the silver ball, and the big one, the golden ball.
That makes more sense because I was trying to figure out, I was like, Golden Gloves too?
No,
I'm
I
with
said
you now.
precious metal balls.
Okay.
Kylian Mbappe has precious metal balls.
I thought you just wanted to say that.
I really think that he's going to have one of those standout tournaments, and because he's going to be the key to making France look better, making them look less ponderous. He's really going to stand out in a way that wins him some individual awards.
I think that's a very safe bet, and I think that especially because when you talk about the issues that we've already addressed, the various formations, I think.
He fits in all of them.
He does, and that's the key thing there. Is I have a feeling that if you're Didier Deschamps, maybe this is my bias. I don't think it is, but I think you try to make Paul Pogba as comfortable as possible, and if that means Antoine Griezmann goes wide, then Antoine Griezmann goes wide, because I think you want that core midfield to be as strong as possible. Mbappe stays right where he is, but if you're taking Griezmann from, I think Griezmann goes left, Mbappe goes right in a 4-3-3. But I think if you do that, as we've already said, it's not Griezmann's strength. He doesn't necessarily do well wide, isolated, without that sort of...
He weirdly did for Real Sociedad back in the day, but it just seems like he's not into it anymore.
Or just maybe he's just so used to not doing it that it's really difficult to retrain his brain. But my point is simply that I think your prediction is smart, because I think you're going to get a lot of attention on, Griezmann once again isn't doing it. Should Dembele start? Should Thomas Lemar start? Should somebody else come in there? And meanwhile, Mbappe is going to be doing it. And so I think because you have so many big names and Griezmann is going to get headlines because there's the transfer rumors again, I think he'll maybe be almost the distraction, and that's probably not fair to him, but it allows Kylian Mbappe to have an outstanding tournament.
One of the things that makes me hopeful in the Kylian Mbappe sense is the presence of Ousmane Dembele on the roster. From what I've seen of French games, Dembele seems to sub in for Kylian Mbappe, and he can play a similar position.
Yeah, I said he was left. He won't be. He'll be right. Yeah, sorry,
so I've seen him sub into games and essentially take over the Kylian Mbappe role, right? And he's not quite as good at it because I think, honestly, Mbappe's intelligence is above Rashford, above Dembele. Not intelligence,
decision-making.
Decision-making, yeah. Dembele will still run at people when maybe he doesn't need to, but he's still the spark. He's still the ignition. And what that means is that France can do this without putting it all on Mbappe and making him play 90 minutes. They can switch it up occasionally so this teenager doesn't have to play every single second of the World Cup. And if he's having a rough day, if he's getting kicked about like Pelé in 1966, then they can bring in Dembele to just offer some fresh legs and something different.
I agree.
Yeah.
I wanted to reiterate that before I get to my other prediction. The reason why I think you are going down the right track with Olivier Giroud doing Olivier Giroud things is because if you look at the teams they're going to play against, we've talked about some other groups where maybe the narrative is, everyone's going to be defensive and kind of bunker. That's kind of true in this group. I think Denmark will be much more defensive. They were throughout qualifying. So too will Australia because they have to be. Peru are sort of the Swiss Army knife. They can kind of do a lot of different things, but you have to believe against a team as strong as France. Maybe they sit back a little bit and try to counterattack. That's, I believe, what they did against Argentina specifically in qualifying.
What France do?
That is what Peru did against stronger opposition. So if you have this sort of bunkered, at least two of the three teams they're going to play, if not all three, are going to be a little bit more defensive, a little bit more bunkered. I think it doesn't lend itself to creative players breaking through. I think it lends itself to overlapping fullback, putting the ball in the head of Olivier Giroud.
And that's the thing. I think it's going to be frustrating to watch France try to break teams down because of those long, ponderous moments, and it doesn't burst into action until Mbappe or there's an overlapping fullback. So it's going to be moments of brilliance, but like 5-10 minutes of slow passing, right? And the more that sort of the fullbacks drift forward, the more that, say, if N'Golo Kante gets tempted forward, suddenly you're going to be vulnerable to a counter-attack. That could be France's Achilles heel, is the counter-attack after they get sucked too far forward.
It's possible. And with that, I'm going to go to my other prediction, which is that I'm predicting that France will regret not bringing Adrien Rabiot.
Why so?
I'm kidding. That's not what I'm predicting at all. They're not going to regret that. No one cares but him. No, my prediction...
What if Rabiot listens?
I mean, no offense to him, but...
He'll be annoyed by the French pronunciation at the start of this show, and he'll be annoyed by your comments.
I think Blaise Matuidi is a better fit for what France are going to try to do. I think he makes more sense.
Matuidi can do a bit of everything, right? That's why I like him. He covers ground, he puts in tackles, he'll do some nice, like, simple but good passing. Like, he's a really dependable central midfielder.
I think so too is Steven Nzonzi from a more defensive standpoint. If you're trying to kill a game off, if you want to switch to a defensive 4-2-3-1, I think it's probably him. And as you mentioned, N'Golo Kante, that is who I do have as a prediction. I predict that he will have his best day in terms of defensive statistics against Denmark. That is
N'Golo Kante.
Yes, 100%. And that is specifically because against Denmark, it really is going to be I feel like either very long balls over the top or trying to play through Christian Eriksen. And I think that's going to be N'Golo Kante's job in that game, is just shut down Christian Eriksen.
Yes, there's also, so we'll get more into this when we do our Denmark preview later in the show, but there's a lot of Denmark long ball and knockdown.
Yep.
And then they expect to try and win that knockdown. N'Golo Kante's going to win those knockdowns.
Yes. I think Australia and Peru have a more varied attack to different extents.
Yeah.
I think Denmark is one where maybe they'll look to isolate a certain few players, specifically Christian Eriksen. I think that will be N'Golo Kante, so I think you'll see his stats reflect that level of importance for France.
It's a good prediction. All right, I want to throw something at you.
Sure.
If I'm picking this French team, if I'm Didier Deschamps, I think if it really comes down to it, I choose N'Golo Kante ahead of Paul Pogba.
Okay.
Much as I enjoy watching Paul Pogba...
What? Wait, sorry, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Much as I enjoy watching Paul Pogba, I really think in many ways, if you have to play three central midfielders to get the best out of him, he weirdly becomes a luxury player. And if you're trying to really have a team system that works, I think N'Golo Kante over Paul Pogba every day of the World Cup.
But see, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think if you go for...
No, they're not, but I'm saying you've got more chance of just getting a two-man midfield with Kante and someone else versus having to go three with Pogba.
Maybe. I'm not sure I agree with you. I think that if they did have like a 4-2-3-1, I think it's Kante and Pogba, and they just try to make it work.
But wouldn't that be better with, say, Kante and Blaise Matuidi?
Possibly, but I just don't think it's what they do.
Maybe I'm saying Matuidi over Paul Pogba.
That is a bold statement.
And Nzonzi over Paul Pogba. I'm worried that he's not worth starting in case the game plan goes wrong.
And this is why, maybe I'm saying a thing that's very obvious to everyone, but it's worth repeating. This is why I do not envy Didier Deschamps, because he has to make that decision. And everybody, I think, is looking at this France team and thinking there's so many good players, they're so excellent, they finally have good center backs. They didn't have that in the Euros, they have it now. It'll be, we think, Varane and Umtiti starting.
Yes, I want to talk about those in a second.
Sure.
If you're good with it.
But I think it's just everybody looking at this team and thinking they have so much talent, how can they lose? And the answer is they have so much talent that some of the players are going to have to lose out. And is Paul Pogba going to want to sit on the bench? Is that what he's looking forward to in a World Cup? Is
as long as he gets
Griezmann
off towards the end, I think he's okay.
I don't know. I think he wants to be one of those those front and center players, those marketable players,
I'm sure he does
on that team. And so I think it's going to be a battle of personalities for Deschamps.
That's interesting. I would say, though, the footage I've seen when Pogba doesn't start for France in the friendlies, he looks not content, but he looks like he is part of the team on the bench. Right? He's not sitting there stewing or being annoyed about it. He's much more mature than he's ever been. I think he can handle it, is what I'm saying. One thing worth pointing out is, so the US plays France next Saturday. France has a friendly coming up this Saturday. We may know more about what Deschamps wants to do after these next two friendlies.
I think that's very much the case for a lot of the teams in this group.
That's true, but France has the biggest question mark, right? You've called them the question marks.
Yep.
So we'll know if he's settled on something after these two friendlies, especially if he does the same thing both times.
A lot of my teams have nicknames similar to question marks in this group.
Can we talk about those defenders?
Sure.
So the centre-back pairing for France, I think... Some people, if you're not like a huge soccer fan, you won't recognise the names immediately. It will be Samuel Umtiti and Raphael Varane. I've nicknamed them the Junior Classico Partners.
That is a great nickname.
Right?
I had similar thoughts, but I couldn't find a way to name it. So well done to you, my friend.
So Spain's centre-backs, the much celebrated Spain centre-back, are Gerard Piqué of Barcelona, Sergio Ramos of Real Madrid, right? Respective sort of leaders of their teams, right? Whether they wear the armband or not. They're partners when they play in La Liga. At Barcelona, Gerard Piqué is partnered by Samuel Umtiti, and at Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos is partnered by Raphael Varane. These guys are 25 years old for Varane, 24 years old for Umtiti. That's quite young for central defenders who tend to, come into their maturity maybe late 20s, 30-ish, right? I've got a lot of faith in these guys, though. I think this is a really good partnership.
You will get no arguments here. I tried, sometimes with these teams when we're doing our previews, I'd look at things that are considered strengths and wonder, is it actually a strength? Or maybe, have they not, are they that good? Have they not played together? And every single time I was like, no, they're very good. This is going to be a very good defensive partnership.
And if anyone tells you it's inexperienced, walk away from that person.
Yeah. And two other things stand out here. One, you mentioned their ages.
Yeah.
That is very reflective of this France team. That you obviously you have players like Kylian Mbappe who are still teenagers and very young. Then you've got some Steve Mandanda is 33, Hugo Lloris is 31. He'll also be the captain. But for the most part, it feels like 23 to 25 is the norm for this team, which makes them very young, But that's really not the issue that you might have with another team where they're very young.
Yeah.
This is very young, but they still have hundreds of caps for their club teams.
There's enough sprinkled in, right? Yeah, there's the hundreds of appearances for club teams. Even Mbappe's got like 2 seasons under his belt, right? Then you've got like Giroud in his 30s. You've got, I think, Matuidi is about 30. You've got some plenty experience.
He's 31.
Yeah.
You get it.
Hugo Lloris will be the captain in goal. He's plenty
31.
experienced at this point. Yeah. There's enough experience sprinkled in. I think it's the right mix.
Adil Rami, Mr. Pamela Anderson, 32.
Yes. I mean, he's not starting.
No.
Can I have one more word on the centre-backs? I think this will be important. Varane, from watching him at Real Madrid, I love, he covers ground so quickly. If there's a ball across, a ball comes in low across, or a ball in behind, he is so good at reading it and getting there first and beating you to it. Then Samuel Umtiti can do kind of the same thing, and he looks kind of aggressive, like he'll step and go for things, but I think he has better judgment than it looks, if that makes sense. Like it looks reckless, and yet somehow he's the one that comes out with the ball every time. And then when he has the ball, I think he's underrated for being a wonderful, wonderful ball player.
Talk about it.
I have seen him sort of, when there's the long ball comes, and Vincent Kompany talks about this in the Grant Wild book, you don't necessarily have to jump the highest to win the header. You just have to identify where the ball's going to land, then be the stronger person at getting into the correct position, and then the ball just lands on you, right? Samuel Umtiti does that, but then instead of heading, takes it down on his chest, strolls forward with it, maybe drops a move, then passes it somewhere, right? Samuel Umtiti is going to be playing out of the back for France, and then those midfielders don't have to drop back and come and sort of do that Michael Bradley thing and take the ball off defenders. Samuel Umtiti can do it himself.
And I want to say, even at like a world-class level, I still think that is a wildly intimidating move if you're the opponent. To see the opposition center back bring a goal kick or a punt or a clearance, just bring it down in one touch and then distribute it wide or play it right back through the middle, that is sort of a uh-oh. like these dudes.
This is a whole new thing, right?
Yeah. And then...
Peru centre-backs won't be doing that.
No, probably not. They're pretty good, though, but more so physical.
That's what I'm saying. They're pretty good, but then Umtiti is next level good.
True. But I think also, so too is Varane. And the thing that I've kind of realized in thinking about Varane and reading about this team is that I think at Madrid, Sergio Ramos is always going to get the headlines. He's the captain. He is the more flamboyant one when it comes to the tattoos, everything like that. But then there's also, he's the more dramatic one. You're going to have controversy with him, but he's also maybe going to score the late winner. And I think that attention, we saw this in the Champions League final. How many times did we notice that Rafael Varane made a goal-saving header or an interception or a clearance or a block? He makes those plays, but I think maybe he doesn't get that next level of attention because he's partnering Sergio Ramos. Here, I think he and Umtiti, it's a weird thing where it's like Umtiti's going to get more attention because he's partnering Varane, but Varane is going to get more attention because he's partnering Umtiti. Neither one is so head and shoulders above the other in terms of their stature on the global scale that I think they both end up just coming out of this one with people thinking, oh yeah, they're very, very good.
Before we get to our final categories, I just want to have a word on Didier Deschamps.
Sure.
Just if you're not familiar with Deschamps, he won the World Cup in 1998 with France as the defensive midfielder, or the water carrier, as Eric Cantona called him. He's been the coach of France for a little while now. He was the coach at Euro 2016 when he took them to the final on home soil. And again, if you'll indulge me, I like to describe the coaches so people know who they're looking at. Deschamps is a short man with big features, big facial features, right? I think he looks like a mean farmer who secretly has a heart of gold and would let you stay the night if you were lost in the countryside.
I like
just one night and you're out first thing in the morning.
Yours is better and nicer than mine. Mine was going to be Gerard Depardieu if he didn't let himself go.
Yours is funnier.
Thanks.
Anything else to say before we move on to our final 2 French categories? All right, who's the transfer target? The guy who maybe could use this World Cup to become much better known and get a big move to a big team?
If we're looking maybe at that combined with maybe kind of young, I think it's maybe Thomas Lemar, who was a player who we thought was going to move to Arsenal this summer.
Everybody did, right?
Yeah, that move did not materialize. Then he had, by all accounts, a fairly poor season at Monaco. I'm still thinking he will get a move this summer because I think Monaco will do what Monaco do and sell players on and bring in younger players and keep trying to kind of re-equip themselves. But I think if he can come in and have an impact, maybe get a goal as a substitute, maybe he replaces Antoine Griezmann in a couple games and gets a result.
I think he could start on the left wing in a couple of games.
Yeah, I think you start to see him maybe get a little bit more attention than he would otherwise.
Fair. I had Thomas Lemar written down, but I thought you might say him. I also went for Nabil Fekir, who's sort of an attacking midfielder. If they play a midfield 3 or even a midfield diamond,
I think you're cheating here.
You could see him at the point. Why is that?
I believe he's already moved to Liverpool.
Nabil Fekir? No.
I believe so.
Has he?
I think he's... Who was the other one who just moved? I think Liverpool have made a double signing already.
Fabinho?
Yeah, I think they got both of them, or are about to get both of them.
Oh, wow. So he's at Lyon? Really, Nabil Fekir to Liverpool? Are you sure about this?
I'm sure that he is heavily linked with a move to Liverpool, and I thought it was being reported as a done deal. We can check that one and confirm or not confirm later on.
Okay, another one maybe then is Sidibe.
Well, I mean, you're still very much right that Nabil Fekir is going to get attention.
And then one guy not looking for a move, but I think could get some attention is Tolisso. Have you seen Tolisso play central midfield? So Bayern paid big money for him last summer.
I think he's why Adrian Rabiot isn't here.
Yeah, and he didn't play like he wasn't like first choice in the big games necessarily for Bayern. Watching these France friendlies, I get it. I get why they wanted him. He is a really classy central midfielder. Bonus prediction is Tolisso will lift the ball over someone's head. He just keeps doing it. When he's in traffic in midfield, he'll lift it over his own head, over an opponent's head, receive the ball the other side. Look out for Tolisso. He'll do that to you.
Alrighty, and then in terms of reasons for Americans to get behind France, what have you got?
There's only one reason. Because France supported the US in the Revolutionary War.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah, why not? That's good enough.
Yeah, and we've given up on all that freedom fries stuff, right?
Yeah, and I do think also that there is it's the weird, frustrating duality of France is that when they're winning, their diversity and diverse background of their players is very much celebrated.
Yep.
But then as soon as things go wrong, it is used by like nationalistic far right people to say this is the problem with modern France.
Yep.
And so I think I personally would like to see a very diverse group from a very diverse set of backgrounds go far in the tournament.
So if you support like positive multiculturalism, a successful France is what you want.
There we go.
There we go. All right, so that was France. We have got Australia, Peru, and Denmark to come. But first, today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. Oh, we nearly did it at the same time like the Cooligans.
And Daryl can vouch, listeners, I cut off my hair very dramatically. I am not a hippie long hair, but I still embrace multiculturalism. Yes, today's show is brought to us by SeatGeek. Buying tickets can be complicated and confusing, but there's a better way to buy with SeatGeek.
So, with just 2 taps on your phone, you can buy or sell a ticket. We were looking around today thinking, what's like the biggest and best tickets you could get right now? As we were preparing for our World Cup preview show, took a minute for the light bulb to go off.
Yep.
But World Cup tickets, they're the hottest tickets in the world. Did you find any on SeatGeek? I know the answer, but I'm asking for
There are tickets available on SeatGeek. There's tickets for Argentina. There's an Argentina game that is for sale. I don't have them in front of me because I closed my computer before forgetting that I was supposed to remember who was playing. But we also have England and Tunisia, and I believe Brazil versus Serbia, which is a game that I would pay a large amount of money to attend.
You mean Sergej Milinkovic-Savic versus Brazil?
And Nemanja Matic and many other names that we will get to when we get to Serbia. Because that team is good.
Talented tall guys versus Brazil. I have my Serbian nickname now.
Yep, talented tall guys.
Well.
Yeah.
So one of the best things about SeatGeek is that it gives you the color-coded chart to say, basically to let you know what are the good tickets, what are the good prices, what are the good views. It will sort of be like traffic lights, basically. Green, orange, and red lights to let you know sort of which are the best deals when you're looking at the stadium plan on SeatGeek. Best of all, you can get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
That's right. Listeners can just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today. That's TSS. All caps, Daryl. That's promo code TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
I want to underline this so people know it as well. It's not always immediately obvious where to enter it. So once you download the app, you go to settings, right? And under settings, you can click enter promo code. Then you click that. Then you enter TSS in the settings.
Then you take that $20, you go to Venmo, you send that right to Daryl Grove. That's the way it works.
Hey, if you want to do that, I am not going to complain. But you're also welcome to keep those savings for yourself.
Or that. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's program and for making World Cup tickets available for people who maybe didn't put themselves into the lottery but now want to go. They have an option.
And thank you for not referring to me as my long-haired opponent.
See, Daryl Grove, this is why I love you more than most people. Because I was debating whether or not to bring that up, and you did it yourself, and that's why you're terrific.
All right, let's not reveal the reference. Someone will get it, or they will not get it.
Indeed.
Yes?
Indeed.
All right.
I was trying to think of another joke, but I couldn't think of one on the fly, so it's fine.
We hope you're enjoying the preview so far. We hope it is bubble bath worthy. Next team up, C2. Australia.
Yep.
Australia. The nickname is the Socceroos, one of my favourite nicknames for a soccer team. It's cheeky, but it's good, right? I think the nickname should be Bizarro America.
Okay.
So this ties into the sort of who should US fans support. I think if you're looking for a US type team to support with all the disappointments that involves, I think Australia is your best bet. There are so many parallels. So that's why I say Australia are Bizarro America.
I'll remember that later on.
They have, for example, a recently formed domestic league that features a Man City related team with no pro rel. They have a federation, which half of all fans are basically in open rebellion against.
Well, I think half is generous.
There's an Australian civil war, basically, that FIFA has to fix right now that involves the federation, right? Their roster is a mix of domestic-based, England-based, Bundesliga-based, and assorted European team-based players.
Oh, I'm going to continue this further for you, because if the United States had qualified, it would probably be similar in composite in the sense that this Australia team is very, very similar to the 2014 Australia team.
Yeah, not identical, but yeah, there's some
similar. And I have to imagine, even if Bruce Arena said otherwise, that you probably would have seen a lot of faces from 2014 make that U.S. roster.
So basically, Clint Dempsey parallel would be Timothy Cahill, right? Cahill's actually a couple of years older, but remember when Cahill went to the New York Red Bulls and it was kind of like, oh, MLS is a retirement league, this is his last stop?
Yeah.
He's played for 4 teams since then.
Some more successful than others.
But he's still going. Tim Cahill at 38 is still going. We don't know the final roster. I would expect that he's on it. And last but by no means least, much as a US squad will often go to the World Cup and not be the favourite in the group, maybe technically inferior to some opponents, but will fight and scrap and be greater than the sum of its parts, possibly all the way to the end. Right, that used to be a US tradition at World Cups. I think Australia has kind of the same feel about it, and they also have that thing on them that most teams don't have. Success in the World Cup helps grow the sport back home, right? That pressure is always on the US national team. It's also always on the Australian national team. Because if people don't know, soccer is competing against cricket, against Aussie rules football, against both types of rugby union and rugby league. It is up against a lot of much bigger sports, just as it is here. So that's why Australia is Bizarro America.
I like it. I like that one. Gotta say I like mine more. Mine is the On the Nights.
On the night? With a K or an N?
With an N. That, to me, I don't know if that's a common expression in England. Maybe it is, but for me, I first learned it in Shaun of the Dead. It's what Ed says when he refuses to prepare to practice being a zombie. I'll do it on the night.
Yeah.
That seems like what Australia's sort of approach to this World Cup is going to have to be. We'll figure it out on the night. We'll figure it out on the day of.
Why do you say that?
Because there are...
Why are they the Nick Frosts of the World Cup?
So many question marks about this team. I didn't want to go with the question marks again because that would be almost too easy.
Yeah. It would have been almost if you hadn't done any research.
There we go. Well, here we go. So we have Bert Van Marwijk in charge. He's the one we talked about him in our Group A preview.
Yeah, he was a Saudi Arabia manager.
Yeah, he qualified a very weak Saudi Arabia. Walked away
ahead of Australia?
Yes, that is correct. Qualified them, contract dispute, walked away, is now managing Australia, but still has only managed a couple of games, I think.
Precisely two. He lost 4-1 to Norway and drew 0-0 with Colombia.
Not great results. Okay result against Colombia, I suppose.
Not a great data set for us to work with either, but we'll do our best.
Indeed. Then, if you look at their final World Cup tune-up game, they're friendly against Hungary, which is this Friday. That is the first time he will have a full-strength squad to choose from, which is not a thing you want heading into a World Cup. It will be the first time that he's had everybody theoretically at full strength back from injuries and will be able to choose his preferred starting 11. So again, this is a team that maybe we'll know more about after that friendly. But even then, there are questions about Trent Sainsbury is expected to be a starting center back, but he was injured for those first 2 games when Van Marwijk was in charge. So it could be Mark Milligan, but he's a midfielder, but maybe he'll drop and be a center back. We don't know.
To be fair, from what I saw, Mark Milligan can do a bit of everything. So it's no great loss if Milligan has to play center back.
Fair enough. But then you've got questions questions about where does Aaron Moy play? Is he one of the, if they go with a 4-2-3-1, which we think they will. Or
That's
I
what
think
Van Marwijk did for the first 2 games.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Do you keep Aaron Moy as a more holding midfielder? Do you put him more as a number 10, since by all accounts he is not as strong as a defensive midfield presence as other players on the field? I don't know who's going to start up top for them. I don't know where some of the other players who haven't been fit but are returning from injury are going to factor into this one. So we know a lot about this team, but we don't necessarily know how it's going to come together on the day of their first game.
That makes sense. Do you mind if we give a bit of background for how they ended up in this situation?
Sure.
So they did have a coach who coached them at the last World Cup. His name is Ange Postecoglou.
I'm very happy that you took that one.
I'm not sure it was accurate, but he took them through the qualification process. Then after winning, they had to go to a playoff against Syria and then Honduras, right? So the US might have played them if we had finished fourth in the group.
Squeaked by Syria.
Squeaked by Syria, but then they beat Honduras 3-1 at home. So it was really, that was at least finally an impressive result. Not long afterwards, Postecoglou resigned. Basically just said, this job is too tiring. I'm just exhausted, and I've got us as far as I can go. I've gone as far as I can. I've got you to the World Cup. Now I'm going to step aside. And there seemed to be some undercurrent of he wasn't thrilled about working with the Australian Federation. He's been critical of them since. And then it sent them into a panic, right? And that's when they ended up hiring Bert Van Marwijk.
And I think that is a considerable upgrade, in my opinion.
Really?
Because Van Marwijk, he got a Saudi Arabia team that, by all accounts, is not the strongest team they've had, but he got them to play as a cohesive unit, and thus they were able to qualify automatically, again, ahead of Australia. So then you imagine him taking over Australia, bringing those same sort of values and beliefs to the Aussies, to the Socceroos, and you kind of could get this idea of, that he brings them together, they gel, they play as a collective whole, as a cohesive unit, maybe they get a couple results. I just don't know if he's had the time to do that.
That's it. Yeah, so we might not know till on the night. Do you mind if I give my quick Bert Van Marwijk description?
I do not.
So Bert Van Marwijk, to me, he's a Dutch coach, worth sharing that. He looks like a math professor who's had tenure for at least a decade and is very serious and publishes in a lot of academic journals, but he's still famous for having a wild side. There will be rumors about this professor showing up at college parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what else do you want to talk about with this team? Should we get to our predictions? Because there's one player who you've mentioned. I don't know if he's going to come up in your predictions. He's actually not in mine, but that made us Tim Cahill.
Tim Cahill. Okay, let's talk Tim Cahill. I mean, he's obviously the most recognisable name on this squad. We'll talk some of the names, I think, in a second, but let's start with Tim Cahill.
So most of the previews I have seen don't have him starting. It seems like it will be a battle up top between Tomi Juric and Andrew Nabut. I guess depending on Juric's return from injury, whether or not he's fit enough in time.
That's the big question.
I
actually think it's going to be Cahill or Juric starting. Or maybe if Juric is fit, I think Cahill and Juric may be splitting time, because Cahill, 38, can't play all those games.
No, he can't. But I guess I find myself slightly frustrated, and there are reasons to not like Tim Cahill. He has done some questionable things of late. We'll get to that in a sec. But I keep seeing all these previews, which is like, can you believe how bad it is that they're relying on a 38-year-old Tim Cahill? And can you believe that this is like, because he got results. He's the one who came in and scored goals for them in qualifying. Very important goals in qualifying that allowed them to be at the World Cup. He is their leader. He is the face. Now, that can be problematic, but I think it is not surprising to me that he is there, and it would not surprise me if he starts or at least gets considerable minutes and is a focal point of their attack.
Here's what it's like, similar to Clint Dempsey. They're not really similar playing styles, but similar to Clint Dempsey, Tim Cahill has this sort of relentless focus, which is part of the reason why, despite being under 6 feet, he wins so many headers. He basically fights his way to every ball. There's obviously some smarts involved in very clever runs, but there's definitely like 20% of it is just this mental fortitude and determination to get there. That's why he's sort of an unstoppable competitive force, in the same way that I believe Clint Dempsey is. So he'll probably fulfill that similar role for Australia.
I agree. I'm just frustrated with him because I think part of the reason why people question his inclusion is his own fault. I've seen some Australian fans talking about how he's basically there because he is the most famous name on this team. He's the most marketable. He is the face. So they want to be able to sell jerseys or sell sponsorships. So they want Tim Cahill there because then sponsors are more likely to spend money. And he plays into that. What's the the name of the company. It is Tripadil.
I remember this,
the Tripadil celebration where he scored a goal and then did like a T. Lots of speculation that was because he had just signed a partnership with them. He tagged them on Instagram with a link to the video. And it sort of steers into like, oh, he's there to sell money and to sell jerseys and to get a little bit of money out of this one. And I don't think that's true. And so I'm frustrated with him for sort of helping prop up that narrative himself.
Yes. All right, that makes sense. Can we talk about some other players?
No,
though?
just Tim Cahill.
Some other Australian players. Like,
sure.
Who's the next player that comes to mind for you? Who are you most sort of interested in seeing after Tim Cahill?
Well, interested is a word.
Okay.
I mean, I probably the most like known name is Mile Jedinak, who will be the captain of Australia in this tournament, playing for Aston Villa. Previously, a very experienced player in the Premier League. Although I think you said that his career was ended by a Richmond kicker, if I'm correct.
I was joking. He got nutmegged in a preseason friendly here in Richmond. He is an absolute titan in midfield for Australia. I mean, first of all, he's a tall guy, right? He's well over 6 foot. He has got this gigantic beard.
I like it.
Your beard's very nice. Jedinak's puts it to shame. It is long. It is Joe Ledley-esque. It is like having an actual Viking in your central midfield. And because of this like fighting attitude, this like big effort that Australia always seems to put forward, I think Jedinak's going to be at the heart of that.
I absolutely agree. I think he will be very much the one leading that midfield, shielding that back four, especially if there are still question marks about who starts in that back four, because then I think he is the calming presence. That said, I think it will be Milos Degenek and then Trent Sainsbury.
If available.
If available, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The other guy that I think will get a lot of attention is Aaron Moy.
Yep.
So you will have been familiar with Aaron Moy this season in the midfield for Huddersfield. I think he's... again, very combative, very impressive player. His passing, and if you follow us on Twitter, you're about to you're going to know what's coming. His passing is as smooth as his head. He did the angry stare in silence.
As soon as you said Aaron Moy, I knew it was coming. But yes, Aaron Moy is the obvious name that I probably should have gone with over Mile Jedinak because, as I said, he is the one who I think maybe will be the more advanced midfielder in the middle of the field as in a kind of number 10 for them. Daryl has opened his mouth with excitement. Yes, Daryl?
I've just realised in my Bizarro America comparison, Aaron Moy is kind of Michael Bradley in that... he's sort of central to everything that happens on the team. He's got the shaved head. He takes the set pieces, and he has a lot of sort of really good long range passing that the team somewhat relies on. And no one is ever sure exactly which position he should play. Should he be sort of number 6, number 8, number 10? It's ever so slightly similar.
And it feels like maybe he shouldn't be the number 10, but like the situation might require him to play as a number 10 in this World Cup, and then maybe that's not ideal.
Well, here's my prediction based on this. Australia will 100% score on a set piece.
Okay.
Because Aaron Moy delivers those set pieces, and then they just have a bunch of really tall, really good in the air players. And in Tim Cahill's case, that he falls in the really good in the air players, right? So Aaron Moy will be delivering free kicks and crosses for Tim Cahill, Mile Jedinak, Jackson Irvine, who's 6'4" and really good in the air, assuming he makes the final roster. Tom Rogic, who's a guy I really enjoy, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more later. I think they are going to be very aggressive and deadly from set pieces that Aaron Moy takes. They're going to score a set piece.
I want to say, I think I appreciate you
I didn't even name a centre back there, so you can then add Sainsbury and those other guys in there as well.
I appreciate that you're taking the more positive route, because I think I'm pretty down on this Australia team.
Oh, yeah, let's explore that.
And I think part of it is because I don't think they're going to be the most exciting to watch, because I do think it is a team that's going to be kind of finding their form in this last friendly and then heading into the tournament. Really, I think that lends itself to being very defensive and really trying to be conservative and not getting shredded or opened up, because as we've already talked about, and I'll talk about again, against stronger opposition, or even maybe the same opposition, if you're looking at, say, Norway, who didn't qualify for the World Cup, if they start to get stretched, if they start to be a little bit too loose, they can get ripped apart. And so I just
one of those Norway goals was the goalkeeper they were trying to play out of the back, and they passed directly to a Norwegian attacker.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I think the larger thing for me is I read
Bert Van Marwijk gave them all an F.
What was their old coach's name again? Ange.
I've got it written down. I'm not going to dare.
To put you on the spot.
I'm not going to dare to pronounce it without looking at it. Ange Postecoglou.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember reading about him back when Australia were really struggling, and I think the other reason why I'm negative about Australia is not because of this team. I have no ill will or beef with any of these guys. It's because I think you're right that it's reminiscent of U.S. soccer, but kind of worse. Except that then they qualified, and so
you're bitter. Is what you're saying.
No. It's more so. It feels like I think you're right, and I want Australia to have a good league. I want them. Yeah. I think rising tide raises all ships, right?
Honestly, the A-League gets promotion and relegation. A-League is successful. It's more pressure on Major League Soccer to do it.
But and so I think my frustration is that it feels like this team is going to go. Maybe they'll be ultra defensive. Maybe they get a draw or two, and that's seen as a good result. And then the Australian Federation, the AAF, can just kind of keep doing what they're doing, and it doesn't necessitate change. And so I feel like maybe some of my predictions err on the side of, but if they don't look very good, if this, I would say, very veteran team struggles, then maybe it requires some changes in approach from Australia.
Interesting. All right, one thing I did pick up from the two friendlies that I want to get across.
FFA, not AFF. My bad.
One thing I did pick up from the two friendlies is I think, right, and this is just my opinion based on what I've seen, I'm not 100% confident in it, but my observation is that Bert van Marwijk's plan seems to be to play a sort of Leicester City-ish style, which is that the whole team gets sort of compact. So the defensive line is actually quite high, even when they're technically being very defensive, if that makes sense. So squeeze everything quite high, which leaves them with quite a high back line, which leaves them in trouble if France can time a ball over the top for Kylian Mbappe. It depends how far they get pushed back, but I think he likes to keep them compact and with a really tight offside line.
I agree, but I think France are going to be able, maybe because I have faith in Antoine Griezmann to do things, but one of my specific predictions is that whoever starts on the left for France, could be Griezmann, could be Thomas Lemar, could be somebody else, I think they're going to cause massive problems for Australia. Ooh. I think that is going to be an area they target. If you go back to that 4-1 loss to Norway, 2 goals and several chances came from basically Norway blitzing that left side, players like too aggressively going out to meet that attacker and just leaving massive space behind, massive gaps that were then opened up by Norway. Ola Kamara, I think, got either a brace or a hat trick in that one. I have to believe that France can pinpoint that side, get a lot of attackers in there, be it Griezmann, maybe it's Mendy charging forward, but I think that you're going to see major problems for Australia on that side.
My understanding, based on watching them, is that left back is kind of more secure. It's Aziz Behic, who plays for Bursaspor in the Super League. So, playing for a not top tier, but like mid-level European team. Right back seems to be a bit more of a question mark, right? It could be Josh Risdon. It could be, I think, Frank Karasic. I'm not sure if he's a right back or a centre back, but it's definitely, there's not an obvious choice like there is at left back. And that says trouble to me. Like that, again, reminds us of the US, right? Going into a World Cup where the right back could be Graham Zusi or Brad Evans or no one's quite sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have Risdon as the starter, but I also saw many people more knowledgeable than I saying that's not good. It's like he's good, but it's not as strong as it could be.
He's a domestic league player, right? Plays for Western Sydney. It's very much like having a Graham Zusi at right back type.
And so with that, my second prediction, which kind of ties into that, is I think you're going to see at least one halftime change in these 3 games from Australia.
That's a good shout, because Van Marwijk's still figuring it out, and
it's like I have it written in my notes as like, this is what we're doing. Oh boy, this is not what we're doing. We got to change it up, and then you'll see maybe a change occur.
Do you mind if I focus on a couple more players?
No, please.
Here's a guy that I actually like, Tommy Juric. We mentioned earlier, like he's battling a knee injury. We're not sure he's going to be fit. If he does start, so you're going to see him, he's this 6'3" centre forward, more than just a big target. He actually has really good feet. He's not too slow, and he's very composed, and he'll get in behind. He's basically, if you imagine Aiden Dzeko, but a slightly discounted version, like a discount Dzeko. And I really do mean that as a compliment, because I think Dzeko is a wonderful, nearly very top level player. Yeah,
ask Barcelona, ask Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. So if Juric is fit, that's the sort of threat. That's the sort of threat he could offer.
Okay.
A guy with a similar-ish name who I'm much more excited about, Tomas Rogic.
Okay.
Tomas Rogic.
Let's talk about him.
He really caught my eye in all these highlights. Celtic fans will know all about him. He's been playing attacking midfield for Celtic for 5 years or so. He is the number 10. He is the attacking midfielder. This guy has got some moves.
And he is the one who, if Aaron Moy starts as a more defense-minded, maybe a number 8 for Australia, then I think you see Rogic come in and start as that number 10.
I mean, if I was picking this team, I can't imagine not starting with Rogic. He has this wonderful ability to move the ball from one foot to the other. this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of those players who's very much two-footed and will just, like, as he receives the ball, will sort of shift it left, right, and that's kind of his move is not all with his shoulders or his hips. It's actually with, like, quickly going side to side with his own feet and really bamboozling people, and then Thomas Rogic is away. So my very specific prediction is, one, I'm going to enjoy watching Thomas Rogic as this sort of really skillful player in amongst all the battling. But two, he's going to catch someone's eye, and somebody out there will make a Thomas Rogic every touch video for one of his World Cup appearances.
Now, is that somebody going to be you, so you get this prediction point?
I do not. I'll be doing this podcast. I don't have the time, but somebody out there is going to be doing it.
Your wife?
Yeah, Shannon will make a Thomas Rogic every touch video.
Yeah, and if it is Rogic starting, then we think it would be Aaron Moy, more defensive.
Yeah.
If Aaron Moy goes to the number 10, then I think at least it would be Massimo Luongo, so that's another name to keep an eye on.
Apparently Van Marwijk was impressed with him against Colombia. Yeah,
playing for QPR in the championship.
One extra thing I want to say, the thing I just mentioned, the video, I think we're in for a lot of that this World Cup. Like Twitter and video editing availability and technology and the level of people's internet is so much higher than it was 4 years ago that we almost haven't noticed. I think 2018 is going to be peak sort of highlights and clips and stuff getting immediately onto the internet. It's going to be a great World Cup to be on Twitter.
Are you worried that we're going to run out of techno music to set behind them?
I am not.
Let me rephrase that. Are you worried that we're going to run out of bad techno music to play behind them?
There's never enough bad techno music. There's so much everywhere.
Have we done all your predictions then?
Yes. So
Okay.
Rogic every touch video, and definitely they'll score from a set piece because Juric, Jackson Irvine, Rogic himself is tall, Mile Jedinak, and Tim Cahill is unstoppable in the box.
And then if you want a reason to root for them as an American, it's because they're sort of similar to what America would look like had they have qualified.
It's because you can recreate the experience of rooting for America.
I'm pretty sure that means there's not going to be as many people rooting for them as there might have been before we started this preview.
Oh, one guy we didn't mention, Matthew Leckie. So they have a couple of guys, Robbie Kroos and Matthew Leckie, who play in the Bundesliga. So technically they're most high-profile players, but we haven't really mentioned them.
Yep.
Matthew Leckie, from what I saw, is going to play on the right wing. He's going to run his ass off, right? He's going to be all over the place, full maximum effort, Deadpool style.
Only actual maximum effort?
Actual maximum effort. But he's really technically not the best player. A lot of what I saw was not great delivery from the right wing, not always the right pass, but he never let you down. He would run back and forth all day and make it happen. So he's maybe the Paul Arriola of Australia.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm gonna bring it home. I know we still have to get to the young players or players who could get a move, but I want to say again. I know I've been kind of negative on Australia.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, they're not going to win the World Cup.
They're not. But I think your point is correct that they are going to work, and I think Bert Van Marwijk is going to instill a new level of confidence and belief. And so I think if you're looking for that team, maybe if you want to spin it in a positive way, if you're looking for a team that's like the United States in the sense that they never quit, they never die, they always work, they never give up, I do think that Australia has a lot of those qualities.
Yeah, the Goonies of the World Cup.
Sure.
So who is maybe a young player who could earn himself a big move via this World Cup?
So the thing with this Australia team is that they are an older bunch. So if you're looking for youngsters, Travis Clark and I talked about him on the most recent episode, which has not yet aired, episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show. That should be out tonight or tomorrow morning, Friday morning. It's Daniel Arzani of Melbourne City. I
have the exact same player, and he reminds me a little bit of an Australian Tommy Thompson. Based on what I've seen.
That can be good and bad.
It could be good or bad. Plays for Melbourne City. He's only 19. We're not sure if he makes the final roster, though.
We're not.
So, you got any backups?
I mean, not really, to be honest. I mean, you've got other youngsters in there, but I think if you're looking for players who could get a move, maybe it is Matthew Leckie. Maybe he does something exciting. I would say maybe Aaron Moy, but since Huddersfield stayed up, I feel like he's not going to abandon that project.
I think Tom Rogic is the guy. I said he's 25 years old. He's been at Celtic for 5 years now. He's got Champions League experience. If he catches the eye in a World Cup, he's going to be a tempting player for someone to go after.
I agree. And then the only other name that we haven't mentioned before we move on, Matt Ryan of Brighton is who we expect to start in goal.
Yes.
Deputized by Brad Jones, former Liverpool keeper, currently of Feyenoord.
There we go. All right. Anything else on Australia?
Nope. That is it for me.
So before we move on to Peru, the next team in the group, I will not be pronouncing it like that the whole time.
Peru.
Let's talk about our DNA.
Okay.
Let's talk about our DNA.
Obviously.
So, thanks to Ancestry, we did our Ancestry DNA tests, maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. We got the results back, and I think we've already shared them once, but let's just do it again in case anybody has missed it. turns out you're more English than I am.
Somehow. That doesn't seem possible. Yeah, I think I'm also more English than my dad, so that's interesting too. But yes, I am 89%.
You should mention that at dinner tonight.
I might. 89% English, 9% Wales, Scotland, and Ireland.
So I got both.
Which basically means Celtic, right? That's what we're saying?
I think so, yeah. Which makes sense, right? Migratory patterns and all that. I got roughly the same thing, but I did get 6% Scandinavian, which gives me a rooting interest in Group C. I'm Team Denmark.
Oh, yeah?
6% of my DNA pulls me towards Team Denmark. You'd think it would be Australia because, Queen's the head of state. No, it's Denmark.
Okay, perfect. See, I did something similar because you would think, like, if I'm primarily English, then I'm going to go with the former English colony, but I'm not for the reasons that you've already mentioned. So instead, I'm going to look at the Celtic side. They resisted the Roman invasion. They fought against them. They repelled them. So too did the Gauls. They fought against the Romans, kind of gave in a little bit, but still opposed them. Gaul would be France. So I'm going to root for France. Why not?
Yeah,
and I think also if you look at the map of if it says you're English, this was the easier connection to make. Because of the Norman invasion, I think when they list you as English, it includes like the north coast of France.
Yes,
so
I
there
got
we go.
that too.
There we go. That's why. France for me. Easy enough.
France for you from this group.
Hopping on that bandwagon.
If you would like to figure out sort of which other countries you are associated with, you can do it with an Ancestry DNA kit. That's not all you get though, right? So you get the breakdown, so kind of like a pie chart with your percentage of DNA. You also get a nice map so you can see which areas of the world your DNA historically comes from. But it also, one big database of DNA, the biggest database in the world, Ancestry DNAs, it will show you matches for people who share your DNA, which means you share a common ancestor.
Yep.
They are like 100% positive, give or take, that the people they list bear some relation to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can get... I've always wanted to know who my seventh cousin was.
Well, you genuinely can find out.
They've got,
you genuinely can
I have
find
many
out.
cousins, according to Ancestry. Several thousand, it seems.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it's Ancestry.com, Ancestry.com/DNA, Ancestry.com/DNA, and you can get 20% off with the discount code TSS20. TSS20 for 20% off at Ancestry.com/DNA.
Get your kit today at Ancestry.com/DNA.
Up next in Group C, it's Peru. Or Peru, as I've been saying. That is the correct pronunciation, but we're going to go with Peru to not be annoying.
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, they are La Blanquiroja, the white and reds, or Los Incas, which means the Los Incas.
Nicely done.
What should they be called, though, Taylor? What should Peru be called?
The Costanzas.
The Costanzas?
Yep.
Interesting.
They're
Please
short,
tell me why.
they're intense, they're predictably unpredictable.
Please explain.
So they are one of, if not the shortest teams at the tournament. That was before Guerrero was added. Maybe that changes things. But their average height is 5'8", so they're a little bit shorter. But they're very intense in terms of they can be very aggressive in a press when they need to be. They can sit back and wait and see what's going on. They can observe if they need to be. That feels a little Costanza to me. But then they're also...
Should just clarify for everybody, this is George Costanza from Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah. But then they're also, like, you kind of don't know what to expect, but that makes them sort of expectable at the same time because they might come crashing down the wing and like be very like swashbuckling, but then maybe they're also going to sit back and be more contained. It's just sort of this varied approach that could spark into life at any moment, but also still has that shortness of the Costanza.
You sound excited to watch Peru.
Correct.
I am as well. So
much so that I make up words.
My team nickname for Peru is the Monica Gellas. So I've also got 90s sitcom because Peru...
Yours is probably better.
...are fun within a structure. So from what I've read from Peruvian fans, the reason they haven't qualified for a World Cup for, 30-something years is that...
36 years.
For 36 years, 1982, is that they always had fun attacking players, but they never had sort of a defensive structure to, really get the points through qualification and make it all work. Under head coach, Ricardo Gareca, they now have lots of sort of structure and boundaries in a 4-2-3-1 type situation, right? They've got solid centre-backs, 2 defensive midfielders, a striker up top, and then just this really exciting band of 3 attacking midfielders that maybe we'll get into a bit more detail later. Everybody holds their position really sort of dogmatically. except for the 3 attacking midfielders. Those guys are free to cause absolute chaos and interchange and do whatever they want. And it reminded me of there's a Friends episode where Monica Geller is planning a party, and she says that the only way to have fun is structured fun, so that there are like rules at the party, rules of the games. Everybody knows what to bring. Everybody knows what time it starts. You have the structure, and then in the middle, you can have Joey, Chandler, and Phoebe sort of being silly and having fun.
That sounds like the plot to a couple different Friends episodes. I'm choosing to believe it's the one where she gives Phoebe cups and ice, and then Phoebe makes the entire party about cups and ice.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that equivalent is here, but it fits somehow.
So the Costanzas or the Gellers?
Yes. I think yours is better just because it's probably maybe better to be Monica Geller versus George Costanza. Unless you're Larry David.
So where should we start with Peru then? Because there's lots to talk about. I'm kind of excited about it.
I mean, I think we have to start with the biggest news as of today.
Oh, yes.
Paulo Guerrero eligible to play for this team at the World Cup.
Why is that a big deal?
Because that was not the case yesterday. That was not the case at 5 a.m. this morning. Paulo Guerrero had been banned. He had tested positive in a after post-match drug test. He had tested positive for cocaine. He claimed, and it has since been substantiated, that came about because he drank a tea. I think we kind of joked about this when we first heard it because we thought maybe it wasn't true. I'm going to go ahead and back that one up and say we were very wrong, because basically he alleges he drank tea that either had coca leaf in it or the cup that he drank it out of had previously had coca leaf in it. Either way, that was enough to have him test positive. But if you look at how much was in his system, it was such a minuscule amount that it's basically mathematically impossible that he would have been doing cocaine. It was not in his system to the extent that it registered as doing actual straight up powdered cocaine.
Which court overturned it today? Which court sort of it basically reversed the extension of his ban that would have put him out for the World Cup?
I believe it was the Swiss appeals court, basically, because that's what it ended up going to, because they have dominion over court cases of this nature upon appeal after being overturned and then appealed again. It's a very convoluted route, but essentially he was going to be cleared to play, which is why he was included in Peru's provisional squad. They thought the ban was going to be basically reduced and that he would be eligible. Then
it was extended.
The anti-doping agency,
WADA.
Thank you, World Anti-Doping Agency, easy enough, came in, had it turned around. It basically extended the ban, so then it went to appeal. But the thing that I kept going back to was I thought they had already listed their final squad. They have not. They have only done their provisional, so he remains eligible and will likely be called.
Here's what I'm getting at. This is important because he is, I believe, their all-time leading goal scorer. He is still their very best goal scorer. He is the captain of the Peru team. He spent his whole international career, which is coming towards the end of, trying to get Peru to a World Cup. So it would have been horrible for him to be sitting this one out, right?
Yes.
Instead, Paulo Guerrero is going to the World Cup to wear the number 9, to wear the captain's armband, to score some goals.
And essentially every preview that I read and a lot of the pundits I listened to were talking about this Peru team, and almost every single one was they will try to find a way to deal without Paulo Guerrero. If he were there, then this is a completely different animal. This team has a very good chance at getting out of the group. With him not there, maybe less so. With him back now, it seems like maybe they're going to find that form that they found in World Cup qualifying, much to the chagrin of Chile.
Okay, let's talk about the structure of this team then.
Sure.
So the Monica Geller, Costanza-ish structure. So I believe 4-2-3-1.
Yep.
The big thing is that they have two sort of... I'm just going to do the very cliche thing and call them solid centre-backs. Christian Ramos and Alberto Rodriguez, very no-nonsensy centre-backs. They're going to be protected by two defensive midfielders, Yotun and Tapia. Tapia plays in the Eredivisie. Yotun plays for Orlando in Major League Soccer. From what I saw, those guys really do just stick with the structure, hold steady as the defensive midfielders screen the back four, right?
Yep.
Then you've got fullbacks who... What I really like about the fullbacks is they join the attack when it's sensible, but they don't overcommit. They're not sort of scurrying to get forward. So that in that way, Peru keep essentially at most times a back six that protects everything else, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got your centre forward.
Those fullbacks, by the way, I think will be Miguel Trauco and Luis Advincula.
That makes sense to me, yeah. Then you've got at the very top, you've got your centre forward, right? Probably Paulo Guerrero, maybe subbing in with him is Jefferson Farfan. So they're both very experienced players. Most people will know Farfan, right? Played in the Bundesliga. They're going to be really crafty. Both of them. Yep. Really, really crafty players. But they'll mostly hold that centre-forward position, occupy opposition defenders. So that really is the entire structure that exists around the thrilling three attacking midfielders of Peru, and that's who I want to talk about.
Okay, I agree with you mostly, except that I think basically the reason why you're thinking of Jefferson Farfan, or at least this is what I'm going to say, feel free to disagree, but I think you're thinking of Jefferson Farfan as that like number 9 or the substitute number 9 because that's what he was going to have to do. Mm-hmm. But with Guerrero back, I think there's also a chance that he's one of those front 3 attackers.
Okay, that's okay because it still fits my acronym that I've come up for.
Gotcha.
Come up for the 3 attacking midfielders. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think it's going to be Edison.
I know what you've done here.
Edison Flores.
Yep.
Edison Flores on the left. Christian Cueva, who's maybe the most exciting of the 3 as the central attacking midfielder, and Andre Carrillo, who you will have seen at Watford at some point, or maybe Benfica on the right.
He's at Watford now, yeah.
They are the FCC.
I knew that's what you were going to
do.
say.
The FCC. But they're the reverse FCC because they encourage even more freedom of expression.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the bad news for you, though, is that if it is Jefferson Farfan starting on the left, then it's Flores moving to the right. So then it's the FCF.
Oh.
But we'll figure it out. The FFC, the CFF, yeah, none of those are good.
Okay, so that would mean Carrillo being dropped,
yeah.
right? But okay, even if that happens, the important thing here is you've got 3 very creative, very attacking midfielders who are going to interchange. They're going to run at you. They can have like quick. It's almost like Liverpool's front 3, but like one line of the field back. The best of the 3, as I said, I think is Christian Cueva. Mm-hmm. This guy is absolutely everywhere. If they're going to test anyone for cocaine, they should have tested Christian Cueva. He charges around just having like really good fast one-touch passes to just get moves moving, but then he'll dribble at you and he's very clever, right? So you've got all that going on with Christian Cueva. He'll wear number 8. Keep your eyes peeled for him.
Yes.
On the left, or the right maybe, Edison Flores. Edson Flores plays in Denmark, I believe, for Aalborg. Very, very, very left-footed, but no less dangerous for it. My first prediction is Edison Flores will not touch the ball with his right foot any more than 10 times in the entire group stage.
The reverse Antonio Valencia.
The reverse Antonio Valencia, yeah. You're going to watch Edison Flores touch the ball with his left foot the whole time, but he'll do plenty with it.
Now, here's my question for you then. I think I know the answer. Is he the type who's only going to touch it with his left foot? The defense is going to know that, and yet they still won't be able to defend him? Or is he the type who's going to try to force passes with the outside of his foot because he won't use his right?
The former.
There we go.
Yeah, because he uses that left foot very quickly in tight spaces. It's tap, tap this way, tap, tap that way, and Edison Flores is away.
Yes.
Yeah, Edison Flores is away.
So I think the thing that I enjoy the most about the attack, as you've described it, which I would agree with, is that it's exactly what you said. It's the very strong defensive base with this very fluid attack, which can very easily transition back into, okay, now we're going to play ultra defensive. Or not even ultra defensive, but just more defensive. And so you can kind of do that. Attack really aggressively for 20 minutes, sit back for 10 minutes. Attack really aggressively for 15, end of the half. Come back out, sit back. That like you can vary it. Again, that's where the Costanza point was coming from, is that sometimes they're going right at you and blowing up, and then sometimes they're just being calm. So like it can be either one, and I think that's what makes them such an entertaining proposition.
Got any predictions for me?
I do. I think that Renato Tapia, you mentioned him earlier, one of your holding midfielders. I think he will have a surprising turn at least once per game.
A surprising turn?
Yes. So in all of the footage I've seen of him, he is very, very good at not panicking under pressure. I kept seeing him get the ball like at the top of his own 18, at 25 yards from his own goal, 30 yards from his own goal. And he always does this thing where it's like, oh, I'm going to pass it out wide to the right back, and just like kind of fakes that way and then just turns and dribbles right through the middle. And defenders bite on it every time. And he kept doing, and sometimes it was in attack, he would like fake like he was going to go back to the center back and then just cut back and go right down the field. Yeah. And people kept expecting him. I think maybe just because he's a holding midfielder, they just expect him to try to like play those simple passes a little bit like Casemiro, and instead he loves that little feint and turn. I saw it so often.
Listeners, look out for that, because as soon as he does that, I assume then he gives it to Cueva or Flores or Jefferson Farfan or Carrillo, and then Peru are off and the ball is moving and guys are running at you and everything's happening at once, and oh no!
There you go. And I think it's especially important to note because, tooting my own horn there, but I think it's good to note because with international soccer, you're never going to get a team as well drilled as they would be for a club team. Like you're never going to get a team pressing the way you would, say, Liverpool. So you're going to get these teams sort of having like one pressing attacker running at him full speed, and that's where that little feint and turn, it really works to his advantage because he just bypasses that little bit of pressure, and suddenly that first wave is just completely negated.
Now picture that against France. France have crept forward, and guys have pushed forward and pushed forward. Peru have sort of pulled everybody back. At some point, he is going to just have one of those weird turns on the counter-attack, and suddenly Peru's away and France are in trouble.
Yep,
right?
I think it's a good shout.
Oh, okay, the man who has made this happen, Ricardo Gareca.
Yeah.
He is the coach. He's worked in South America.
Tigre.
Worked in South America basically his entire career, from what I could see, right? Argentinian clubs, Peruvian clubs, and the Peruvian national team.
He's been there since 2015. They haven't lost since 2016.
Wow. He looks like Steven Tyler's less fun but more responsible brother, which I think is very fitting for what he's done with this team.
What era Steven Tyler?
Present.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a 60-something-year-old man, right? So he looks like Steven Tyler's less fun but more responsible brother. His band would not be called Aerosmith. It would be called something like Wordsmith or Shoesmith.
Yep.
This is Ricardo Gareca.
What predictions do you have? I've done one. I've got one more to go.
Okay, my other prediction is the aforementioned Paulo Guerrero, excuse me. I watched a lot of footage of his finishing, which is muy impressive. He bangs them. He hits them hard. His finishes are, I'm going to hit this on target as hard as I can when I'm one-on-one with the keeper, and the net's going to move. So my prediction is Paulo Guerrero will have one emphatic finish for better or worse.
Okay.
As in, he's going to bang it as hard as he can, and it's either going to rattle the back of the net or he's going to hit it really hard but wide.
Yep.
Yeah. And you'll know it when you see it, right? You'll see an emphatic attempted finish from Paulo Guerrero.
This is where I can't speak for myself because I can't claim to have massive familiarity with Paulo Guerrero, but multiple different...
He and I hang out all the time.
Yeah? Multiple different
We meet for
previews. Multiple different previews that weren't just Peruvian fans writing them made the argument that he was, I think, second to Robert Lewandowski. At least I saw 3 different outlets say that he was the most polished number 9. As the pure number 9 striker, outside of Robert Lewandowski, he was the number 2 in this tournament.
Interesting.
So that will be interesting because I think you're right.
Maybe they hadn't seen Harry Kane. Any other predictions from you?
Yep. Prediction number 2 is that Luis Advincula will make a fast defender look slow or a slow defender look very slow.
This is the right back?
Yes, because as you said, he picks his spots.
Yes.
But when he gets forward, he has got wheels. He can blaze past. And if maybe you do get an outstretched or overstretched France, maybe they've got too many committed forward, maybe you get that little bit of a turn from Tapia, plays it wide, and away goes Advincula down that right, plays it into Guerrero, he rifles it in, and suddenly we get 3 predictions in one play.
Love it.
I'm all about bundling. Unless you're Verizon.
Reasons to support this team if you're an American. So, first World Cup in 36 years. That's a big deal, right? Beautiful jerseys. They have the most distinctive jersey style in all of world soccer. White with the red sash.
Yep.
Yeah. No other team has that in international football. It is a thing of beauty. If you're a Major League Soccer fan, you've got Andy Polo, plays for Portland Timbers, and you've got Yoshima Yotun, the defensive midfielder, who plays for Orlando. Andy Polo's not going to start, is he, because of the others, but he's going to be a backup for that band of that attacking trio.
Yes.
Final reason I give to support is the friendly videos that Peru sent to every other team in Group C. They have made this the group of friendship.
Yeah, I think they have. I did love them. Yeah, it's like a reminder of who we are. You haven't seen us in a long time. And then it really does a good job of painting their culture and their history.
Yeah.
I like it.
And it seems like they got everybody so on side. Didn't all the other team captains support Paulo Guerrero's sort of petition to have his case re-examined? I feel like it's one of those sort of goes around, comes around things in a positive way. They put out some love and they get it back from every other team in Group C.
I think so.
Yeah.
I would add, have you done your other prediction?
Have I done my other prediction? Yes.
All right, then I would add my final thing I wanted to say about Peru is maybe they got a little bit of love in the sense of Bolivia making some big mistakes. Because if you look at how Peru qualified, they finished 5th in Common Bowl. They had to go to the playoff. They finished ahead of Chile on goal difference. Now, a big part of this, the big turnaround in their campaign, was they had, I believe, lost to Bolivia in a game. Chile drew that. It was that kind of international break. So Chile got a point out of that one. Peru got none. Then it turned out that Bolivia had fielded an ineligible player, so they both were awarded 3 points for the forfeit. But if those results had stood, then Chile are ahead by 1 point, and it doesn't go to goal difference, so Peru are out. So it was that little sort of fortuitous moment where Bolivia made a clerical error, if you want to look at it that way, or tried to cheat would be the other way, that really turned this entire campaign around, and from then on, they had it in the bag.
I'm going to say clerical error.
Like, head in the back, I mean, worked very hard and won their games.
I'm going to say clerical error because I've forgotten the guy's name, but it wasn't like they started him and he was ferocious. That guy got like 10 minutes or something at the end of the game.
Yes.
Terrible,
you are
terrible clerical error. Okay, I've done reasons to support. Do we have any sort of players who we could expect to get a big move based on this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not obvious, I'm pretty up on him. It's Renato Tapia, 22-year-old, as you said, playing in the Eredivisie for Feyenoord. He's a holding midfielder. But I think if Peru make it out of this group, there's a chance they make it past just the round of 16 if they do get out. And I think he'll be a big part of that. And so anytime you've got that kind of quote-unquote surprising team making a run of the tournament, there's always one or two players that turn heads. I think he's one of the ones that could.
I don't disagree. I think also Christian Cueva, again, he'll wear number 8. He's at Sao Paulo, so he's playing a good standard, but he could definitely play in Europe. Similarly, Edison Flores, the left-footed guy we mentioned, only 24. He's been at Aalborg in Denmark for a couple of years, and I think maybe a La Liga or Portuguese team would happily take a gamble on him.
I agree with that.
It's also going to be an interesting scenario when Peru plays Denmark. The Danish people are going to be like, oh, we know about this guy.
Yep.
Let's be terrified of this guy.
We are concerned. Yeah. Also worth noting, Flores, second most goals for Peru in qualifying, 5 goals. So, yeah, he's definitely capable.
How many with his right foot?
All of them. All of them with his right foot.
They were not.
No, they were not.
I bet they were all left foot. I've seen so many of his like weird left-footed finishes. Yeah, he's
maybe
a
head in there.
Maybe a head.
You don't know.
But the left side of his head.
Sure.
Anything to add for Peru before we move on to Denmark?
Just that I am happy that Paulo Guerrero will be there because it did seem like just such a blow to Peru at a time when it seemed like the entire country was rallying, and now I think it's just going to they're going to 11. Daryl, Paulo Guerrero being there pushes them to 11. I think that they're going to be rowdy in the stadium. I think you're going to see lots of great shots of people in Peru watching on giant televisions and being very excited. I think they're going to be very fun to watch for a variety of reasons.
Lovely. All right, final team in this group. The team possibly of my DNA.
Yep.
Denmark.
Yes.
Denmark are in Group C. Their nickname is either De Rodvide. De Rodvide.
De Rodvide.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know. That's what I'm going with from watching Vikings.
The Red White, just based on their jerseys, or Danish Dynamite, which is a throwback to the 80s when they were a much more attractive and attacking team because they had Michael Laudrup.
Yep. What have you got for them now? Because I don't think the Danish Dynamite one works so well.
Well, now it's Direct Dynamite.
Okay.
Direct Dynamite, because this team goes long. And you might be thinking, but they've got Christian Eriksen. He's the number 10. He's the playmaker. I agree, and that is what they're trying to do, but they have a weird way of doing it. Essentially, they will always have one big centre-forward. It could be any of their centre-forwards. Nikolaj Jorgensen is 6'3", Andres Cornelius is 6'4", Nicholas Bentner, if fit, is 6'4".
Yeah, they're not small.
And then Yusuf Poulsen on the right wing, plays for RB Leipzig, you may be aware of him, also 6'4". So essentially, they go long from the back, they launch it towards these strikers, and then those strikers either win the headers and knock it down, or the sort of a 50-50 scramble ball. And the plan seems to be, again, this is based on my observations from watching a couple games and trying to figure this out, so I'm not 100% confident, but this is my feeling, is that then that ball comes down one way or another, and then hopefully Christian Eriksen gets it, and then they play from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a decent description, other than maybe sometimes Christian Eriksen just gets the ball and dribbles himself.
Yes, there is also that, right? So Direct Dynamite is what I see Denmark doing.
And my nickname is the Pretty Good Team. Do you know why?
I feel like more thought went into mine.
You'd be surprised, because so many comments on Twitter, on Reddit, in different team previews that I read, so many of them like, oh, this is a pretty good team. They got some pretty good players. Oh, they're pretty good. They're not bad. They're pretty good. Like so many, just the constant refrain was like, oh yeah, I didn't realize how many guys they're pretty good. Like, and you will, I guarantee you, if you listen to another preview, I'm not judging because I think it's accurate, but you will at some point hear somebody be like, yeah, they're pretty good. They've got some quality in there.
So which players do we like?
Sure. I mean, I think you've already mentioned him. It's Christian Eriksen.
Okay,
that is going to be the focal point of their attack.
Because he's the best player.
I mean, you're not wrong. 11 goals in 12 qualifying games. He led the team by far with goals, with chances created, all that good stuff.
He is, I want to say, the best player in the world in terms of flashiness to actual impact ratio.
Yep.
Like, never really flashy, but he always seems to have massive, massive impacts on games.
I would say I think the few times I have seen him be flashy, it was still sort of like, yep, that worked out. Like it was for purpose, not just step over, step over, step over.
Yeah, it's a lot of sort of really clever passes that you almost don't appreciate until you watch the replay of just how hard it was to pull out that pass. He's also, I keep calling it the Spurs style, where, there's like a zipped ball to the back post along the floor. It's really the Christian Eriksen style, because he loves to do that, because he can pick out a far post runner and play the ball across in a way that's behind the defender but in front of the forward. He's so good at that kind of through ball. Also, not too shabby shooting from distance. So that is another thing that Christian Eriksen is going to be having a go at.
Since you've led into it, my first specific prediction is that Christian Eriksen will score at least one goal from outside the 18.
Interesting. I've got a similar one, because we'll talk about this together. Christian Eriksen will score from a headed knockdown.
Ooh, okay.
So, as the aforementioned strikers, long ball, probably from like Carr at the back, they knock it down. Eriksen hits it first time.
Yep. I mean, I think that's possible, but I think it's possible because, number one, he scores. Number two, he scores from distance. And I love that, I can't remember the game it was in the Premier League this season, but I just remember it being he had one shot from distance that went wide, then he had one shot or went over, then he had one that went straight at the goalkeeper, and the third one was back of the net. It might have been against Liverpool, it might have been against Man City, I forget.
Rangefinder.
It seems like, he basically finds his range and can hit them with lethal accuracy. And I do think maybe if they come up against some packed defenses, some more contained approaches, maybe that's what we'll require of him, is instead of trying to find his way through, he'll find a gap with a bullet to the back of the net.
So you just see slightly wide, post, top corner.
I could just see a team, say Australia, for example. I could see a team sitting back and maybe being so reliant upon keeping their shape and making sure that there's no 1-2 combinations through the middle, that maybe they just fail to close him down one time, and that's enough for him to be like, ooh, I can shoot. And maybe even if that one doesn't come off, it still gives him that mindset of ooh, if they don't close me down again, I'm looking for it, and then he's looking for that opportunity.
That makes sense to me. I see Denmark in a 4-2-3-1, very sort of traditional kind of 4-2-3-1. The style is, as we mentioned, right? Two defensive midfielders who I'm not sure who they're going to be. Probably Delaney, who plays in the Bundesliga, might be one of them, but there are a lot of candidates to play defensive midfield. And then, so Eriksen, number 10, central attacking midfielder. I think Josef Poulsen, who's a weird striker / winger / tall guy / talented guy on the right, plays for RB Leipzig, so he's great at that sort of winning second ball type stuff, playing fast.
Yep. If not him, then Cornelius, who you already mentioned, playing for Atalanta.
Oh, so he could also play right wing, tall. He's 6'3", 6'4", right? So he's going to be a tall guy on the right wing.
And I think
a reverse Mario Mandzukic.
That's exactly what I've seen it described as.
Oh,
it's
really?
basically aiming for him out on the touchline for him to win, because it's the idea being that he'll be up against maybe a smaller fullback who then he can dominate in the air.
But then you've got an actual tall centre forward as well. Maybe we'll talk about the identity of that centre forward in a second. But on the left wing, total soccer show favourite, Pione Sisto. Better known in our circles as Pione Asisto. So this is the Ugandan-born Pione Sisto, who is lightning fast and not afraid to burn people down that left wing. And I think he adds a nice variety, right? Because if it was all direct balls, knockdowns, big guys, you got this one fast guy who's willing to run at people and to shoot from weird angles, for better or worse. I think it adds this nice little extra bit of variety to Denmark's attack. My other prediction is Pione Sisto's pace will take somebody by surprise. Because he does the kind of, what do you call it, the stop-start. You know what I mean? He'll slow down with the ball, then just bang, he takes off and he's away, and you are looking at the back of him when you're supposed to be marking the front of him.
So you said it's a nice option to have. I think you said it's a nice thing. I think it's an essential thing that he's on this team.
Because they get predictable otherwise.
Because I think that, otherwise, as I kind of alluded to with my France prediction, I think you can really focus on shutting down Andreas Christensen, really focus on defending that long ball.
Christian Eriksen, you mean?
Excuse me, Andreas Christensen, more on Andreas Christensen in just a second. But Christian Eriksen, if you focus on that long ball, if that's all they have, that's all they have. But the fact that you have Pione Sisto, who can serve in a ball, had a decent number of assists, I think 5th most assists in La Liga, but then can shoot, as you said, and can dribble, can be direct himself. I think he is just such a varied attacker. There it is. That's what I was looking for. And I think because maybe Christian Eriksen is going to get the attention, maybe Pione Sisto is able to exploit some space.
Yep. And TSS listeners will know all about Pione Asisto, because we've been getting Ryan Marzak scouting reports for the entire season. I'm going to say we are the best Piano Sisto updated soccer show in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. And I think maybe that's why I have him as my youngster to watch. There are other options out there, but I think and I had him from Top Drawer Soccer Show as well, but I think he is one who, he just ticks all the boxes of like, played consistently for a La Liga team that challenged for the Europa League. I don't think they ended up making it. Maybe they did. But either way, he has that experience. He's playing for the national team. He can score goals. He can assist. And I think if he has even a decent tournament, he is one of those that suddenly is like, oh, wait a minute, that guy, I could just see him at a like mid-tier Premier League team very easily.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so Piano Sisto, you think is the young player to watch, maybe get a big move? I think the same thing. Who do we think the actual centre forward will be? I think we've been dancing around this a little bit because there's an injury question at centre forward, right?
There is. Even if Nicholas Bentner weren't injured, I don't think it would be Nicholas Bentner starting. I think maybe he comes in. I could be wrong, but I am leaning towards Nikolai Jorgensen. If I'm hoping that's how you pronounce it. It's the O with a line through it. Never know what to make of that. Feyenoord striker. Feyenoord featuring in some of these groups. 27-year-old striker, as you said, a big physical presence for Denmark. Not necessarily a leading goal scorer for them in qualifying because that was Christian Eriksen, but he...
That just proves how much it all is set up for Christian Eriksen to succeed.
Yes.
Right? So they're there for knockdowns, not even for their own finishing.
If it's not Jorgensen, then it could be Nicholas Bentner. It could theoretically, possibly, maybe, potentially be Kasper Dolberg, the 20-year-old Ajax forward.
So he's on the preliminary squad, but he doesn't... we've got a feeling he doesn't quite make the final squad, right? He's only ever played for Denmark 4 times.
Yes, I believe that's correct. Worth noting, though, that the initial squad for Denmark was 35, and it was expected that he would be one of the first cuts. They've already cut it down to 27, and he is still there.
If Nicholas Bentner was 100% fit, do you think he would still be there?
No, maybe just to push Bentner a little bit more, maybe. But if Bentner isn't 100% fit, then I do think Dolberg makes the squad. I don't know if he starts. I don't know if he gets minutes. But I think if Bentner's not there, then you'll see Dolberg there.
There we go. Okay, so can we talk about the defence?
Sure.
Because you, I think Freudian slip style, mentioned Andreas Christensen earlier. A guy, again, we've been following through the TSS scouting network, a guy who has played for Chelsea all of this season after being on loan to Borussia Mönchengladbach last season. Here's the kicker. He is not starting because a guy who plays for Brentford is starting instead. How's about that?
Do you want to try that guy's name?
Yeah, it is, of course.
Andreas Bjelland?
That's what I was going to say.
There we go.
Yes. I was looking for his name on my page.
29-year-old centre back, as you said, for Brentford. He will partner team captain Simon Kjaer. We know Simon Kjaer. He's been around.
Yeah, but look out for Simon Kjaer, very experienced defender. I believe he plays for Sevilla. Yeah. You will see him with his hands behind his back, Sergio Ramos style.
Oh, yeah?
When he's facing shots from distance. He's got the Sergio Ramos trick. What trick? Tick, I guess. Always go hands behind back, never give away a handball.
Yep.
So, how about this for a prediction? Simon Kjaer will not give away any handballs.
That feels like a jinx.
But he will, right? But he will be responsible for a lot of long balls. He is often the one launching the ball from centre back to sort of Poulsen or Jorgensen, ready for those knockdowns.
Yep. Yeah. This is a centre back duo that combined to concede the fewest goals in the group, only 8 throughout World Cup qualifying. I looked into why Bjelland is starting because it does seem like it would be Andreas Christensen playing at a higher level more consistently. The answer is simple. Left center back. They want a left footer. It is not Andreas Christensen. That's what it comes down to.
All I saw was the coach, Aga Haredi, saying basically the reason Christensen's not starting is just because I like the partnership of Bjelland and Kjaer. Yeah. But I guess you've just found more detail.
That might be. I
just said they complement each other well, which is the same as what you're saying.
And it really is. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I guess is what it comes down to. So then the question might be, where does Andreas Christensen fit? Because he is so talented and such a capable player that if you're not going to use him at center back, maybe use him as a holding midfielder.
So Aga Haredi said, I would like to use him as a holding midfielder.
Yep.
Then the March friendlies rolled around and Andreas Christensen was injured.
Yep.
So he didn't get to do it. And it could be that setback means that Andreas Christensen doesn't win that spot. He is up against, for my money, he's up against Lasse Schöne, who's an experienced guy, Thomas Delaney, William Kvist, also experienced.
And from what I've seen, it was throughout qualifying, it was kind of a midfield. If you want to go 4-2-3-1, then those two would be William Kvist and Thomas Delaney. Yeah. Those are the two who I think are most likely to start, and then we'll see if Christensen can sneak in there probably at Kvist's expense.
And those two defensive midfielders, their job is to watch Simon Kjaer launch the ball over their heads, and it's very important that they watch it as it travels towards a tall centre forward, and they have to make sure that it doesn't come back the other way.
Yeah, that checks out. So what predictions have you got? We've already done our Christian Eriksen ones.
So Eriksson will score from a headed knockdown, and Pione Sisto's pace will take somebody by surprise.
Yep. Okay, I have got my final prediction then. Denmark will either keep France goalless or get ripped apart.
Why do you say that?
Because I was looking back at qualifying, and if you look at their results against Poland, that's who finished ahead of them in the group. So then they had to go to the playoff where they pretty much destroyed Ireland. They beat Poland 4-0. Then they lost to them 3-2. And it feels like Denmark, if their system is working, if they're frustrating the opposition, if it is France kind of just sending waves of attackers with no real strategy behind it, that seems like it plays into Denmark's hands. They can counter. Maybe if Denmark counter really quickly, then France panic and send more numbers forward, and suddenly it's like a 2-0, 3-0 Denmark win. But I can also see Denmark maybe getting a little bit nervous because they're in the World Cup and because they've got to stay defensively rigid, and if they give up a little bit of space, I think they're fully aware that then they're in a lot of trouble in trying to create against that French team. So I just feel like it's going to be a situation when either they really frustrate France and keep them scoreless, or France find a way through and suddenly gaps open up and they end up losing 3-0.
Whoa. Okay. Any reason to support
Basically,
Denmark?
I'm going to say it's not going to be 0-0 against France.
Any reason to support Denmark for US fans at the World Cup?
I mean, they're Daryl's team, apparently.
Yeah, DNA.
They're your bloodline.
Yeah. Find out if your DNA matches Denmark.
No, I mean, I don't really have a specific one for Americans.
Okay, here's some suggestions. If you're a Spurs fan, we have a lot of Spurs fans in the United States.
Yep.
This is the Christian Eriksen team. That's a reason for you to support Denmark.
That makes sense. That? Yeah.
If you're a TSS Scouting Network fan, you've got Andreas Christensen and Pione Sisto there. That's maybe a reason to support Denmark. One of the good reasons...
If you're a Leicester City fan from when they won the title, Kasper Schmeichel would be their goalkeeper.
Yes, that's interesting. Maybe he could... no, they're not going to win the World Cup, are they? So he's not going to match his dad in winning the title for
Seems
Denmark.
unlikely, yeah.
The other reason is that their jerseys are manufactured by Hummel, a Denmark-based company. So they've got sort of a local supplier for their jerseys. I love a throwback Hummel jersey.
I like that.
Reminds me of my soccer childhood. From
all right, here's a big old stretch for you.
Okay, let's do it.
If you are a Real Madrid fan and you are concerned about Zinedine Zidane walking away from Madrid, look at Denmark as an example of how maybe freshening things up, if not in the prettiest way, can be very good.
So they got rid of
Martin Olsen, who had been there for a very long time. And by all accounts, it seems like they tried to play a prettier style of soccer with a bit more possession to it. In comes Haride, much more direct. Only 3 losses in his 21 games in charge. So getting rid of the person who's been there and had some success to bring in somebody else who can change it up, not always the worst thing, is all I'm saying.
That is a stretch, but it's an interesting point.
Fine.
Will you indulge me one last time today on my managerial appearance description?
Always.
So, Aga Harida. When he's in a suit, he looks like a distinguished town mayor who used to run a successful community bank. That's the air he has about him. When he's in a tracksuit, he looks like a distinguished town mayor who used to run a successful community bank, but now he's wearing a tracksuit. Because that's what he looks like. You
were really proud of yourself when you came up with that joke, weren't you?
Yes.
I had a feeling.
I think it landed.
Here's my question for you.
It landed like a long ball to Yusuf Poulsen.
My final question for you then. I think I only saw a photo of him, his Wikipedia profile photo, but I might be confusing him with somebody else in this group. Could you also see him as, to go back to ancestry, a third cousin of Louis van Gaal?
Yes.
Is there that similar look?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
But he looks more friendly. That's why he's the mayor in a town and used to run a community bank. He looks like he's got a community spirit about him in a way that Louis van Gaal certainly does not.
He's not going to come out and call people bad humans or whatever Louis van Gaal referred to the Man United front office
and if
as.
someone was a bad human, he would try to help them.
There we go. That's what the owner of a community bank would do, especially while wearing a tracksuit.
All right, so there is your Group C preview, unless you have anything else to add, Mr. Taylor Rockwell.
All I have to say is that Denmark, a pretty good team.
The Larry David team.
Yep, pretty good.
So one thing is, people have been receiving these previews very well, right? People have said, I enjoy these previews. But why don't you guys, at the end of the show, let us know the 2 teams you think are going to finish in the top 2, or give us your order that you think the group will finish in? We
try to keep this show clean. We try not to have to ag the explicit tag. So I would just say, were we to do that, we would almost certainly be BSing. And that is not a thing that we want to be doing.
Because I will guarantee you, everyone who does their previews, if you've watched enough World Cups, you know that you can't really predict what's going to happen in the group stage. There are always surprises.
Yep.
Who out there picked Costa Rica to win the group against England, Italy, and Uruguay in 2014.
I mean, the 2002 France team was the defending world champions. We had high hopes. They crash out. Like
Zizou
these
himself.
things can happen.
Yeah. So in some ways, I feel, I'm not sure if you agree on this because we haven't really talked about this in detail, but I feel it's almost pointless to predict the final group standings, and it's more useful and helpful and more fun to talk about what each team does and how they match up against each other. But it's impossible to extrapolate that into here's how it's going to finish 1, 2, 3, 4.
I agree to some extent. I think I am more inclined to do like bracketology than you are. I'm not sure that's a thing that has ever appealed to you.
Because you've lived here for too many marches.
That's possible. I'm not a huge college basketball fan, to be honest, but it is.
Neither are half the people that fill out the brackets.
And I think maybe that's part of it, is that like it's an easy way to kind of go through and look at the groups and make your decisions and then kind of back who you want to back based on that bracket. That's kind of what I do when I pick my bracket.
I see.
And I think maybe...
So it's to give people a rooting interest in the World Cup.
Yeah, possibly.
I see.
But I think at the end of the day, like I could see Peru getting out of this group, I could see Denmark getting out of this group, and I could see France getting out of this group, and Australia will be there. So I think like...
Do you feel that about most groups? It normally comes down to, after we've done our research and watched these teams, there's sort of 3 strong teams and 1 team that isn't quite up to the same standard. But then it's impossible to pick between the 3 strong teams.
I think it is the nature of doing in-depth research on a team that you start to sort of get immersed in that team.
Yeah.
And once you do, you're convinced that the Saudi midfielder is one of the best midfielders in the group until you go research Uruguay. And then you're like, oh, no, he's not. And so I think like there is that element of like, oh, they're all very good. They're all here.
They all make the World Cup.
You get those little degrees. Mm-hmm. But I think I am not necessarily confident. I just don't think it would add much value for me to say like it's definitely going to be these 2 when in my mind I'm thinking it might be those 2.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So maybe the other element of this, not to drag this out too long, but the other element of this is we try to be very sort of convinced before we say something, right? And if I'm not convinced that France is definitely going to finish first in this group, I'm not going to like sit here and say France is finishing first unless I really believe that to be true, right? Olivier Giroud is going to like foul people in the air. I'm convinced of that. That's why I'm comfortable saying that. And I think it's more interesting to look at that detail than at 1, 2, 3, 4.
But if you do want some sort of prediction as to how this will go, I think that France do get out. I don't necessarily know if they win the group because I could see them having some frustrations and getting a lot of attention for that. And then I think either Denmark or Peru gets out of it as well, and I think it comes down to that game.
All right, so best of luck, Australia.
Indeed.
All right, thank you, Taylor, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Thank you, listeners, for listening. We will be back on Saturday with our review of Ireland versus USA. All of our World Cup preview shows can be found at totalsoccershow.com/World Cup.
Woo, World Cup.
Please spread the word.
Spread the word.
Let people know about our World Cup group previews.
Go on and do it.